Hey everyone, welcome to the show. Ever catch yourself wondering what your life would look like from the outside, like a highlight reel of all the choices you've made, big and small? Well, get this, the book we're diving into today actually explores that idea. It's called The Love of My Afterlife by Kirsty Greenwood.
Ah, I love this one.
Right. It's a romance novel, contemporary, with a touch of fantasy, like a dash of the supernatural.
Yeah, yeah.
But it really makes you think. So if you're looking for a read that'll make you laugh, cry, and maybe question everything you thought you knew about, well, life, love, second chances, this is it. Links in the description, by the way. And hey, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future deep dives. Okay, so let's jump into this Love of My Afterlife thing.
Yeah, let's.
What I think is so cool about Greenwood's approach is how she takes this, wild concept, being given a second chance at life, right? It makes it feel so real, so relatable.
I know. It's like, boom, you're dead. But wait, there's a contract for your return.
Exactly. Do we meet Delphi, our main character, right at this crazy turning point? I mean, talk about a bad day.
Seriously.
She wakes up and she's not only dead, but she's also face to face with this bizarre agreement, like the terms and conditions for coming back to life. And let's talk about where she finds herself. I mean, picture this. You open your eyes and you're in, get this, a laundromat.
Right. Not exactly Devin's waiting room.
I know. It's such a clever choice of setting. Laundromats are all about cleaning, starting fresh, getting rid of the old stuff.
It's like a giant metaphor, right, for what Delphi's going through.
Totally. And running this otherworldly laundromat is Merritt, who's like Delphi's afterlife therapist.
Yeah, the Afterlife Therapist. I love that Greenwood went there.
And here's the kicker. Merritt is obsessed with romance novels.
Oh, I know. Like, even in death, we can't escape those tropes of love and happy endings, can we?
It's hilarious, and it makes you think. Anyway, so Merritt lays it all out for Delphi. She has just 10 days to get a kiss from her soulmate, this guy named Jonah. Otherwise, she's stuck in Evermore, the afterlife, like forever. Talk about pressure.
Intense.
But before Delphi can even start looking for this Jonah guy, Merritt shows her this Was Your Life video.
Oh, man, that video, it's where things get really deep, I think.
Right. So it's like a highlight reel of Delphi's life. But it's surprisingly sad. It's all about missed opportunities, things she never did, a life that just kind of happened.
Yeah, like she was sleepwalking through it almost.
Exactly. And I think we can all relate to that feeling a little bit, right? Like, am I really living or am I just going through the motions? I mean, imagine if you watched your life flash before your eyes. What would it show?
That's the question, isn't it?
Would it be a story of regrets, like Delphi's? Or something else entirely? This book really makes you stop and examine your own choices. Like, are we following our dreams? Are we putting our energy into the things that matter?
Big questions.
Right. So Delphi, she's got this newfound awareness thanks to the not-so-happy highlight reel and a love contract, literally drawn up by a romance novel-loving afterlife therapist. And she's off on this mission to find Jonah. The problem is she barely remembers him. And get this, he's basically a ghost online. Like, no social media, no digital footprint whatsoever.
Oh, is this crazy in today's world?
I know. It's like he's intentionally off the grid. And so Delphi ends up on this wild goose chase, running into all sorts of quirky characters along the way.
It's a lot.
And the characters are brilliant, like Frida. She's this free-spirited dog walker. Honestly, she's a total whirlwind of chaos.
I love Frida.
Me too. She reminds me of someone, I just can't put my finger on who, but, she represents something in Delphi, I think. Like that adventurous side that wants to break free.
Yeah, that part of her that's been suppressed, maybe.
Right. And then there's Aled, who's this sweet, kind of awkward librarian.
I love him.
He becomes Delphi's confidant, which is really sweet because she's been so lonely.
Totally. He offers that unconditional support she needs.
Yeah. And then there's Cooper, who's Delphi's neighbor.
Oh, Cooper?
He's a bit grumpy at first, but he ends up helping her look for Jonah, even though he doesn't really want to.
Right.
And you can tell there's something between them, like a spark. But Delphi's so fixated on this contract, she doesn't really notice. At least not at first.
It's a slow burn for sure.
It is. And just when you think you've figured out their dynamic, Greenwood throws this major curveball. Delphi finds out that Cooper has a twin sister, Emily, who died a few years ago. And guess what? Emily is Merritt, the afterlife therapist. It turns out she faked her own death to escape to Evermore and run this, matchmaking service for the dead.
Whoa. Right.
It's crazy.
And it makes you wonder, was Delphi's whole quest genuine? Or was Merritt pulling strings trying to set her up with her brother?
I know. It's wild, right? And poor Delphi's stuck in the middle of all this family drama, trying to figure out her own feelings. She's drawn to Cooper, but she's also bound by this contract to find Jonah and get that life-saving kiss.
It's like her head is saying one thing, but her heart's saying something else.
Exactly.
So Delphi's stuck, right? Trying to sort out this whole soulmate thing while she's got these growing feelings for Cooper. But like we were saying, life, or I guess the afterlife, has a way of throwing curveballs.
Oh, for sure. Remember, Merritt warned her about making herself vulnerable. Well, that warning, it comes back in a big way. Because Delphi and Cooper, they get into this car accident. And it's not just any accident, right?
No, not at all. Because, get this, it was actually caused by Merritt, like on purpose. She disguised herself as Emily, her dead twin sister, and swerved her car into them.
Whoa, wait, what? I mean, I know Merritt is a bit out there, but that's intense.
Right. But she thought if Delphi almost died, it would somehow wake up Jonah's soulmate awareness or something.
That is, wow. Talk about extreme matchmaking. But it totally backfires. Cooper gets really hurt, and Delphi ends up in the hospital. And the craziest part, Jonah's there too. He saw the whole thing happen.
Oh, man. The timing is just awful because while Delphi is freaking out about Cooper, Jonah is pouring his heart out, telling her how much he's drawn to her.
And Delphi's barely even listening. It really highlights the difference between that soulmate connection she felt with Jonah in Evermore and what she has with Cooper. Like, one is this grand, almost otherworldly feeling, and the other is just real, raw, and messy. Makes you wonder if maybe soulmates aren't all they're cracked up to be.
Totally. Like, is it fate or is it about the choices we make, the people we let ourselves get close to?
Exactly. So Delphi's dealing with all this guilt and confusion. And meanwhile, Cooper wakes up, but not in the hospital.
Nope. He's back in Merritt's laundromat office in Evermore, reunited with Emily, his twin sister.
Wow. So he is alive, but in the afterlife. This is so confusing.
I know. And while Cooper is happy to see Emily, he's also kind of shocked, right? I mean, she faked her own death and has been living in the afterlife this whole time.
Yeah, that's a lot to take in. And Delphi, she eventually recovers from her injuries, but she's still reeling from everything. So she confronts Merritt, and she's angry, like really angry, for being manipulated and put in danger.
It's a good moment for Delphi, though, because she finally stands up for herself. She's not that same shy, passive person anymore.
I like that. So all this happens, and then Delphi decides to do something totally unexpected. She decides to confront Jen, her childhood bully.
Oh, wow, yeah. Out of nowhere, it seems like.
But it makes sense when you think about it. It's like Delphi's finally ready to face those old wounds, to get some closure.
And what happens with Jen is really interesting because Jen doesn't even really remember Delphi. Like, she vaguely remembers their interactions, but she doesn't remember hurting her. And she says after she moved away, she just forgot about Delphi completely.
That's crazy. Like, their shared history just vanished from Jen's memory.
Yeah. It makes you think about how unreliable memory can be, right? And how two people can experience the same events so differently.
For sure. And for Delphi, it's a bittersweet realization. Because on one hand, she doesn't need Jen's apology anymore. But on the other hand, it really reinforces that feeling of being invisible, forgotten.
Yeah, it's tough. And remember, Delphi is running out of time. She has less than 2 days left to get that kiss from Jonah. But with Cooper stuck in Evermore and her heart pulling her in a totally different direction, things are looking pretty impossible.
I know. What's she going to do?
Well, instead of focusing on herself, Delphi decides to do something for someone else. She throws a party. Not for her return from the dead or anything, but for her neighbor, Mr. Yoon. He's this older guy who's really lonely.
That's actually really sweet. Like, she's finally starting to think outside of her own drama.
Yeah, exactly. But then at the party, things get even more complicated because Cooper's mom accidentally spills the beans that Cooper is totally in love with Delphi.
Whoa. So now everyone knows except Delphi.
Pretty much. And remember, she's supposed to be chasing after Jonah. But before anything can happen with that, Merritt shows up with some bad news.
Oh no, what now?
Well, her whole matchmaking scheme, with Cooper and Delphi, it's been discovered by Eric, who's another afterlife therapist, and they have this whole rivalry going on.
Oh man. So Merritt's in trouble.
Big time. And to make things worse, she admits that she caused the car accident. She was terrified Delphi would choose to go back to Evermore and leave Cooper heartbroken, so she decided to take things into her own hands.
Wow. That's a lot to process.
I know, right? But then Merritt drops another bombshell. She says Delphi actually had a change of heart right before the accident. She was on her way to find Jonah when it happened.
Oh wow. So it was all for nothing.
It seems like it, but just when it feels like things can't get any more twisted, Delphi decides to visit Jen one last time. She wants to finally put the past behind her, but what she finds out changes everything. So we left off with Delphi going to see Jen Wright, that last visit. Well, it turns out that conversation, it kind of throws a wrench in everything.
Yeah, it does, because during their talk, Jen drops this huge bombshell. She tells Delphi that not only does she not really remember hurting her, but she actually completely forgot about Delphi after moving away.
It's like their whole shared past, it just vanished from Jen's mind. Poof. Gone.
It's wild, right? I mean, it makes you wonder, like, how much of what we remember is even accurate, and how two people can experience the same event, and it leaves completely different marks on their memories.
Absolutely. And for Delphi, it brings up all sorts of mixed emotions. I mean, in a way, it's freeing, right? She doesn't need Jen's apology anymore, but at the same time, it just reinforces that deep feeling of loneliness, of being invisible.
Totally. And while Delphi is processing all of that, back at Mr. Jung's party, things take a turn, like a really bad turn. Cooper suddenly collapses.
Remember how Merritt said Cooper was still tethered to her somehow?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out that her returning to Earth, it had these, like, unforeseen consequences. She kind of dragged Cooper back with her, but not in a good way.
Oh, no.
He's alive, but unconscious.
Oh, gosh. Stuck in this weird limbo then.
Pretty much. And to make things even crazier, Jonah shows up at the hospital right as Cooper is brought in.
Oh, no. Talk about bad timing. So Delphi is caught between worrying about Cooper and this deadline on her contract with Merritt. And then Merritt shows up and offers this, like, crazy idea, a total gamble.
This is where it gets really intense.
I know. So Merritt says since Cooper's soul is still linked to hers, there might be a loophole. To bring Cooper back, really back, Delphi has to kiss him.
Whoa.
It's this huge choice, right? Stay on Earth for Jonah, the soulmate she met in Evermore. Or follow her heart and fight for Cooper.
I was on the edge of my seat. What did she do?
Well, Delphi, she chooses love. She kisses Cooper. And I don't want to spoil the ending, but let's just say it's beautiful. Really heartwarming. It shows you that sometimes the greatest love stories aren't about fate. They're about the choices we make.
And the people we choose to share our lives with.
Exactly. Well, that's the love of my afterlife in a nutshell, folks.
What a journey.
I know, right? It's funny, heartbreaking, and thought-provoking all at the same time.
So, listeners, what did you think?
Yeah. What part of Delphi's story really stuck with you? What would your This Was Your Life video look like? Tell us in the comments below.
And don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the books we love.
Thanks for listening, everyone.